What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. All right, moving on to the Clippers. I only passively watched this game because I was primarily focusing on Suns Warriors, but I did catch a good chunk of it just paying attention. I don't want to talk too much Clippers tonight because I want to do a deep dive on them soon. I have a friend of mine who works for The Athletic that I met in Vegas playing basketball, actually, this past July. I'm going to have him come on the show. Law Murray, you guys may or may not know who he is if you guys are Clippers fans. I'm going to have him come on the show. I'm going to reach out to him and see if we can get him on and break down the Clippers in depth, because I want to get him talk about them in a bigger picture. But they are 10-3 in their last 13 games. These metrics are not including tonight, but in their previous 12 games, 4th in defense and 5th in net rating. 18th in defensive rebounding, which is better than they had been doing at the beginning of the trade, but not great. But the defense is really coming around. Now, and the offense is starting to pick up. They were really bad at first, but they're up to 14th now over their last 12 games. And I do believe it'll continue to get better. But the big thing that stood out to me right away is like the basic geometry of what makes this team work is they're an excellent defensive team. They are one of the best athletic perimeter teams that you'll see around the league. When you've got Norman Powell, Russell Westbrook, and Terrence Mann at the guard position, which are all excellent athletes at the guard position, right? And then you've got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, two of the best wing athletes that we have in this league. That is like the perimeter foundation. Now, what the Clippers do defensively is they switch everything except for when Zubac's on the floor, then they run a drop coverage, right? And like I've always talked about with drop coverages are not doomed to fail on their face. It's just about execution. As long as the guy on the ball can do a good job of navigating that screen and staying attached on the backside and offer a good rear view contest or back pressure, whatever you want to call it, it'll work. As long as you've got a big man that's got enough size to be somewhat of a rim deterrent and has enough instinct and athleticism to step up and contest floaters and pull up mid-range jump shots and things along those lines, right? And you see that in this Kings game in particular, where it's like, okay, here comes Keegan Murray off of a dribble handoff, and Sabonis is rolling to the rim after. Except for it's Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard does a good job navigating the screen, and he's attached on the backside, and he's pressuring Keegan Murray, and now he's rushing the floater, and he's shooting it hard, and it bricks off the glass, right? That it's just different than if you've got a guy who dies on the screen or can't stay attached or doesn't have the size to really bother with back pressure, and now he can settle into a calm, easy floater that he practices when he's doing his shooting drills, right? That's a fundamental difference, right? There was a play where De'Aaron Fox is going off of a dribble handoff with Sabonis, and Paul George is attached on the backside. And as Sabonis is rolling down, there's Zubac waiting because Paul George is attached. De'Aaron Fox can't slow down and operate in the mid-range, so he's going barreling downhill. Paul is funneling him into Zubac at the rim, right? And Paul George is also athletic enough that when Zubac contests that shot and forces the miss, PG can bury Sabonis underneath the basket and get the defensive rebound. That's the other piece of it too, is like in these coverages, often that on-ball guy has to peel off and box out the big man, which is something that their wings, even their guards, are capable of doing. And so it starts on the defensive end. This is an excellent defensive team because of their perimeter defense. I'm still worried about them in terms of the bigger teams in the conference, teams like Denver, Lakers, Minnesota Timberwolves, like teams that could really punish them on the glass. Those are the things that would concern me. But in terms of the regular season, they're gonna get enough stops. And as I said during the losing streak, I didn't look at the Clippers as really any sort of regular season issue, because I view them more. There's just no way that those guys weren't going to figure it out offensively, and they still have so much better that they can get. It's more like physical limitations in a 7-game series against the top tier opponents in the league, which is a separate conversation. And, we'll get into that when we do our Clippers deep dive. But within the context of these regular season games, when they can contain most of these teams on the perimeter, and then you're seeing the natural offensive fit. Like James Harden's doing an excellent job kind of orchestrating things while still making sure that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are the featured offensive players. They've got Paul George running on a lot of off-ball actions right now, and he's getting a lot of really clean catch-and-shoot looks. And then like Russell Westbrook in his fit, like he's getting ignored in the weak side corner, but he's doing a really nice job crashing out of that weak side corner. Have multiple offensive rebounds, including a tip dunk against Sacramento coming out of that weak side corner. They're going to get better and better on that end. I do think this Clippers team is going to win a lot of regular season games, especially with the motor that they're playing with. Like their stars are competing. I think that was one of the good things about that 0-5 or 0-6 stretch is it just brought real urgency to the situation. And they're playing really hard every night, and they're having a lot of success because of it. But again, we will do a deep dive on the Clippers soon. I'll probably try to get to them next week. On the Kings front, again, just like I talked about with Houston, just like I talked about New Orleans, these elite perimeter defense teams that can turn these screening actions that they run into really high difficulty plays, high difficulty shots, their offense tanks in these situations. And like what we're seeing, because I talked about their 0-5 against New Orleans and against Houston, well, in 3 of those 5 games, they got held underneath 100 points. Well, here we go. Another elite perimeter defense team, and the Clippers hold them under 100 points. And this is a team that lives and breathes on the offensive end of the floor. And so what's concerning to me about that is because Sabonis has not been a good enough, consistent, matchup attacker down low, they just don't really have another offensive punch they can go to when teams can contain Fox and Monk and Huerter and Murray, right? And like that's where you're seeing these problems. It's something to keep in mind as we look forward. It's a matchup thing. Like again, like when you're really, really good, when you're one of those top tier contenders, you can win in different types of matchups and have success even when things don't go your way. But in that tier below that, it's very matchup based. If the Kings face the Warriors, do I think they can beat them? Sure. But if they run into these excellent perimeter defense teams like the Clippers, for instance, teams like the Lakers, for instance, I think the Kings are going to have a lot of problems. And it's just something to keep in mind. I know the Kings won a couple of games against the Lakers earlier this season, but you know how the Lakers were playing earlier this season. But it's just something to keep in mind from a matchup standpoint. When we get to the postseason, as we're trying to make predictions, who are the Kings playing? Are they playing a team that has good matchups for their perimeter initiators? Because if they do, their offense could stall out and it could be a death sentence for them.